Before we start this video, a large thank you to X Matthew, Kyle John, Halvor, Chaotic Blue, Zane Gardner, Lemonade, Mizuki, and Herman Zieg for their support on Patreon. That is greatly appreciated, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy the video. And a massive shout out to Halo Burner for their continued immense support to the channel this month on Patreon. As always, it is sincerely appreciated, my friend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, I'm going to quickly go through doing the leg equipment and the hand equipment. I won't spend too much time. I'm going to zap through this because it is exactly the same as the body and the helmet. You just got to do some things, disable some models, and re-enable them. So we're going to learn how to save our equipment and our weapons and our currently equipped weapon. So when you load back into the game too, we can equip those. And we're also going to learn how to toggle between male and female body types with a model. So under load leg equipment, again, it is the same as before. We're going to unload all of our leg models. We're going to change the proper IDs to the IDs need to be. So this being our network variables, because this is going to reflect when someone joins. And then we're going to make sure we set the proper leg equipment piece in the player inventory to whatever we're passing. And for the owner, again, just making sure this value is what it needs to be. And there we go. We don't have unload leg equipment models as a function. So let's go ahead and quickly make that. This is going to be different depending on what kind of model you use. Obviously, if you're using a Cindy model like me, it's going to be the same, most likely. If you have your own model, which is what is totally recommended, just go through and do what you need to do. Or if you have a prototype model and none of this matters, then don't worry about it at all right now. A note for the Cindy model, another little weird tick with it, besides the animation fixed scale thing. For some reason, and I messed them about this a long time ago, but they haven't fixed it to my knowledge. The left leg parent object under the male version of the model, everything under the left leg parent says right leg, and everything under the right leg parent says left leg, but only for the male version of the model. This will get really confusing when you're setting up armor, so just be very aware of that if you are using the Cinti model. You can correct it obviously pretty easily in some model editing software, just change the names. When I was using armor pieces from it for Nephilim, we just did that. But be aware, if you are using it, that there's improper naming conventions on the male-specific parent under the right and left legs. So, under unload leg equipment models, we're just doing the hips and the right and left legs for both the male and female, so it looks something like this. Just want to basically go through each of these and just disable all the models. Oh, and the knees too, I forgot about that. So any knee attachments, your left knee and your right knee, go through those and disable them as well. And then you're going to want to enable your default lower body. So I'm going to call this enable lower body. We don't have that yet. And I honestly forgot to also create the disable body, disable arms and whatnot. I know I think I might have actually said in the last video we don't need that, but we definitely do. I'll show you why in a bit, but we're going to do that as well. So enable lower body is going to be, I think I just called it male. No, I probably called it male legs and female legs. Male lower body. I didn't call it lower body. I definitely called it legs. All right, so male legs. Yes, there it is. And female legs, like so. Okay, good to go. Save that. And I just want to make sure if I go up here and check my comments. Yeah, so I didn't include hips, but this definitely does include hips. So I'm just going to add that to the comment here. I'm pretty sure I remember putting that in there when we were dragging the variables, so we'll see. All right, so we have the legs, and now we do the hands. So the hands consist of the lower arms and the hand models, at least if you're going in the style of Souls games. Like lower body in Souls is your hips and your legs. I know some games do it like boots instead of having full-on leg equipment, but we're doing the way we do it in Souls and Elden Ring, which is lower arms and hands for the hands, and then for the leg equipment, it is all of the hips and the full legs with the knees. All right, so do the same thing, just change up all of your variables here now, except it's going to be hand equipment, not leg equipment, and make sure you call upon our non-existent unload hand equipment models, which we're going to make right now. So again, it is going to be the same as before. We're going to disable, in this one specifically, the lower arms and the hands, and then we're going to enable the arms of the character, and I don't think we have a function for that yet on the player body manager. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so we'll make that too. So there is something you may have noticed, and you can change that if you want. I'm just now realizing I've done it because I copied this from Nephilim and edited it as I needed to. But you'll notice that we change our weapons by changing a network variable, and that triggers the weapon switch. But for our armor, we're equipping it first and changing the network variable if we're an owner. It works identically the same, but if you want to make it so the armor switch happens for both people when you change the network variable, you can go ahead and do that. I had my own reasons for not doing it this way in Nephilim, a very hyper-specific reason that I wanted to do it this way, but you don't need to. If it bothers you that we switch our weapons by changing a network variable, but we change our armor model and then change the network variable from here, go ahead and change that. But again, it doesn't make a difference. It's completely identical. It's just if you like the way the code, I guess, flows or looks, definitely make it how you want to make it. So let's jump over now and make our enable arms function on the player body manager. So again, it's just going to be enabling the default arms of the male and female, which we set up, I believe, in the last video. So I'm just going to say male arms, or I just call them yes arms, and female arms. So we are going to need to make disable versions of all of these functions, and I'm just going to show you why. I totally forgot this. It's just I didn't notice when we did the helmet and the torso, but I'll show you why in a moment. So let's go over now to and make sure all of these lists are in order. Like you have all these variables here, so make sure you're actually calling them and initializing your arrays on awake here. And over in equipment model, make sure you do the same thing. You want to make sure you have all of these lists here for all of these armor models, or else it's not going to work. So you need a reference to every list, or rather array of different models. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. I'll show you what my workflow is this. So under the armor models, I'll create one called Knight's Chestplate Model Data. And I'll drag in all of these models that we made for the chest plate and put it in there. Just to help keep this folder clean so you know what you're looking for. And it's easy to drop these models in the items when they're done. So I'll make another one too for the helmet. And I'll show you why I think this is super cool and clean. So you can see here on the left I have a folder open called the Knight Set. And you can see here on the right I have a folder open called Armor Models. The models are going to be dragged into these different items individually. So I'm going to go ahead first real quick and make some hand model setups. I'll just do the hand, and then I'll do the legs off video because you're aware of this by now. We're going to make sure that we set up proper female and male names and make sure the tag for the equipment model type, or the enum rather, is correct. And then I'm just going to change the name of all these little data pieces here to the name of the armor model itself, but I'm going to remove the female or male tag because I just want to make sure that if I quickly glance in my inspector, it's obvious I can see what number this is for lower right arm or lower left arm. Not too important, but this is just how I like to set it up with my workflow, so I just thought I'd share that with you guys. And once we have all of these models set up for our Knight's Gauntlets, these are for, so it's going to consist of a lower left arm, a lower right arm, and a right hand and a left hand. We can go ahead and give this its own folder. Just like the chestplate model data, and just like the full helm model data, this will become the Knight's Gauntlets or gloves or whatever you want to call it model data. So I'm just going to switch this name out here now, and then I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Knight's Gauntlets model data. Now we can drag all these in here, and this just looks so much neater. And now if we go to our folder with our armor again, so items, armor, Knight set, go to your Knight's Gauntlets, lock the inspector up here. Now we can simply go to the Gauntlets model data folder and drag it all in there. So if you ever just come back and want to look for this, it's just really easy to find it. I just like giving each armor piece its own folder for its model data. So if you're looking for it, you're going to go, oh, where's the Knight's leggings armor pieces to, or armor models to? And you just have it in its folder. You won't get confused because if you just have them all in a singular folder, if something ever happens, it's just really easy to lose track of everything and wonder what goes where. So here, you can see here under the female leg, everything is fine. Left leg is left leg. But if I go to the male leg, just to show you here too, this is the left leg. You can see that it says right, but the parent says left. So be very aware of that. That's why it's going to get confusing, because when you go to the left leg now, for the male's model, you got to say it's a right leg, and for the female's model, you got to say it's a left leg. Again, this is an error with the Cinti model. It's been there for as long as I can remember. Maybe if enough of you guys email them about it, if you're using the model, they'll change it and fix it. But on Nephilim, when I was using these armor pieces for our model, I just got my friend to drag them into an editing software and change the name manually. But beware of that, just so it doesn't trip you up. I'm going to save that now, and we're good to go. Now I'm going to go to the player equipment manager, and I'm going to make sure I get rid of these null checks. We don't need those anymore because we have a way to load the naked models when there's no armor. We never want to do the null check. Now we can save that. And I'm going to go into the game here and watch. If I equip some armor here, so I'll put on the helmet. the gauntlets, and all the armor. And there you go. You can see I can see my arms through the armor here. And it was like that with the chest too. We just don't notice it. If we click here, you can see the chest is active. It's just the armor is so big it covers it. But we're supposed to disable the naked models again before we enable this armor. So we do that, and we actually have a comment here for it too. It's number 5. If you need to check, this one says for head equipment, but it's meant to say if you need to check for specific body parts to disable, here's where you do it. So under the body equipment, you want to disable the player's body. Under the leg equipment, you want to disable the lower body or the legs. And under the hand equipment, you want to disable the hands. So that way, you'll equip the armor, and it won't bleed through, or the default body models won't bleed through. So let's quickly do that. And these functions don't exist right now. Don't worry, we're going to make them in a sec. So I'm going to call this disable arms. So let's jump back over, and you see we have enable body, enable arms, enable lower body. We're going to copy all of those and just change the enable to disable. That's it. And then change the true to false. So basically just gone through male body, male arms, female arms, legs, and just change the true to the false, as in we're disabling all the models, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to copy this, paste it here, going to paste it here, here, and finally down here and here. Whoops. And now if we go into the game after this and try it out, save this, it should be working as intended. Let's see. So if I equip my armor, you can see, yeah, it's not bleeding through. Just to show you again, I will unequip it real fast and then re-enable it. So there's my hands. And if I re-enable it again, there you go. No bleed through. Cool. Awesome. Working as intended. So what is next? I am going to go over now to the player manager, and we're going to go and start saving some stuff. We haven't done that in a while. So go to the save game data to character data function and get that on the ready, and go to the character save data script. We're going to add a bunch of integers here for some item IDs for our equipment. So what are we going to add here first? Let's make a header for equipment. And then right under that, I'm going to make a public int for head equipment ID, or just head equipment. Honestly, it's good enough. It's an integer. You know what it's going to be there for. Do the same thing for your body equipment, your leg equipment, your hand equipment, just any equipment slot you have. And while we're here too, we're also going to do the weapons, because we didn't actually save those yet. And we're even going to save which weapon we had equipped last by using our index, and we'll put that specific one there when we come back, and we'll save the index as well. So make one for right weapon 1, 2, 3, left weapon 1, 2, 3. Now, alternatively, you could do a list, and it might look a bit neater to some people. So you could just make a public list of ints and reference the values 0, 1, or 2 in this list, or whatever. I don't want to do that though. I just like using the individual variables here like this. Don't know why. Do whatever you want to do, whatever makes most sense to you, whatever's cleanest looking to you and easiest to read. I'm the only person writing in this project, so this to me is the easiest to read. Now I am going to jump down here under save game data to current character data, the function. I'm going to make a green comment here for equipment, and we're going to say current character data.head equipment is equal to, and then we can reference here. You could just say the player inventory manager dot head equipment dot item ID like this, but then of course you would have to do a check to see if it's null. Otherwise that's going to throw you an error. So you'd have to say if player inventory manager dot head equipment is not equal null, do this, else it's going to be -1, because that's our default value for referencing something in our item database that doesn't exist. But there's a simpler way to do it. And now I'm going to show you that, but if you want to do it this way too, that's fine. This way works just as well, as identical to what I'm about to show you, but I find it just looks a bit more, I'm going to say unkept to what I'm going to do. So if you do want to do it, I'll just finish this example, and then I'll show you the alternative, and we'll erase this. You would do it just like this, finish up with your hands and your legs. That's cool too. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this is the alternative method, which I'm going to go through. I'm going to say current character data dot head equipment is equal to player network manager dot head equipment dot value. Because remember, this should be -1 if we try to equip a piece of armor that is invalid anyway. So that will work identically, and it's one line of code. That looks a bit better than 4 or 5 with those else statements. So do the same thing with your body, hand, and legs. And again, if you want to do it the other way, if that makes more sense to you, then go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it this way. And we're going to do the same thing with our weapons as well. But with our weapons, we have to reference our player inventory manager, because we have to reference the weapons 1, 2, and 3 in the left and right hands. But remember, they're never going to be null, so we don't have to check for an if or an else. They should never be null. So I'm going to make the default values of the head, body, and leg hand equipment -1. And now it's weird to change default values under a network variable. So what you want to do is, instead of trying to change it here, just remove the player network manager script and re-add it. Because for some reason changing default values before it becomes live on the network, it doesn't really work. Anyway, let's go back to the save game data here, and let's make a current character data right weapon 01 is equals player network manager, player inventory manager. And then we're going to say current right hand weapons, and you reference the first one, which is 0. Do the same thing for 2 and 3, and then the left weapons as well. And again, these should never be null because it should always default to unarmed. So you shouldn't have to check here for a null. I'm going to make a comment here. This should never be null. Now, if you want to be extra safe, sure, you could check if you want. But I'm going to keep it like this because I like the way it looks. So right weapon 02, right weapon 01, and right weapon 03. And then this becomes 2 because it's 0, 1, 2 in the list values. Do the same thing for the left, and that looks a lot nicer to me than if there was just some if-else statements there. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just like the way this looks. It's very easy to read on my eyes. So right becomes left, right becomes left, and right becomes left. All right, cool. So we have the saving portion done. What about the loading portion? Now, if you make your own serializable data here, and when I say that, I mean, if you make it so you can save your own custom data types like armor pieces, you can make this one line of code. But we're not going to do that because this is just an integer and it's very simple. Don't need to overcomplicate it. But if you'd like me to show you an example of that, you can do some cool things with that. Like if you want to generate effects on the fly or different values that are not set in stone, that will be when you'd use something like that. I can show you a little snippet from Nef, just let me know. But for now, we are going to keep it simple. So let's make a variable of each different equipment piece we have here. And let's instantiate a copy of it from the world item database using the number. So remember, we've made these functions here to get leg, get hand, get body, and get head equipment. So we're going to assign those like this. But let's also do the same thing for the weapons. Now, we can't just do this as it is. We have to check for a null, because if we try to instantiate something that doesn't exist, it's basically going to say, no, can't do that, it's not there. So before we activate this instantiation, we need to check to see if an item of that ID in the world item database even exists. But for now, first, let's write all of this out. We're going to do the head equipment, body, hand, and leg, and then the weapons, the right weapon 01, 2, 3, and then left weapon 01, 2, and 3. So with the weapons, we're just going to get the weapon by the ID from the character data, and then we're going to say the player inventory manager weapons in right hand slots 0, 1, 2, or 3, whatever equals, or 0, 1, or 2 equals whatever weapon. So we'll click this in the end, and then lastly, you want to go to your player equipment manager and you want to equip your armor from here, because again, we're setting the network variable under that equip armor function if we're the owner. That's why I was referencing before. I'm just going to change the name of this too, by the way, to equip armor, because we can just keep this function and use it. So we're going to set that to public and erase the debug message. But that's what I was saying before. If you want to make it so just simply changing the number is how you equip armor, much like we do with the weapons, which is changing the network variable, you can do that. That's totally cool. It'll be handled a little bit differently in saving. I'll show you in a second what I mean. But if you don't want to change it, again, the functionality is identical. It's just up to you. So first we're going to check for all of these variables and if they actually exist in our world item database, if these items exist rather. So it will look something like this. I'll do a couple and then quickly fast forward so I save you some time. This video is getting quite long already. So if we open up some curly bracers here, if the world item database.get head equipment exists, referencing the current head equipment, then we want to instantiate it and then assign it to our head equipment. Otherwise, we're saying that our head equipment equals null. So it's just like that. So I'm going to do one more to show you. We can do body equipment real fast. What we want to do is, again, just check to see if the body equipment exists using the ID we have from our current character save data. If it does, cool, instantiate it and then set it. And if it does not, all right, it doesn't exist, so just set it to null from the player inventory manager. Just now realizing too, I accidentally said body up here. This should be head. And now I will quickly do the rest and snap back. Here we go. This is how it looks when it's all done. So here is the head, then we got the body, the hand, the legs, and the weapons are the exact same thing, just like this. All right, I'm going to save that now. let's jump over to the project. If I go in here and assign the helmet and the armor and the legs and the gauntlets, equip it, and then save the game. Where is our world save manager? Over here, hit save. And after you hit save, just go back in, reload. Boom, there we go. Look at that. The armor stays on. Perfect. Cool. So that's working as intended. Let's test out the weapons. But before we do that, let's also make a public int for current right. Actually, didn't even say current. We say right weapon index. And then a public int for our left weapon index, like so. Now we want to save the index because if you have 3 weapons, we need to save which one you have equipped when you quit the game. So if you're using weapon slot 2 out of 3 when you quit the game, we want the game to remember that. So we're going to say current character data.write weapon index is equal to player inventory manager .write weapon index. Very simple. Do the same thing for the left. So now when you're changing up your indexes, when you're switching weapons in game, it will remember that. But not only that, so we can't just say equip weapons in both hands down here because that's you can't just use equip weapons right here. It won't work like that because we're never setting the network variable. And we need to also remember which specific weapon to assign to the current left and right weapon slot. So it's very simple though. All you're going to say is player inventory manager .right hand weapon index is equal to right weapon index. And then you're going to say player inventory manager player network manager current right hand weapon ID is equal to, and then we're going to search our player inventory manager. We're going to search the weapons in our right hand, and we're going to search it by the specific index of the last weapon we had equipped. And then we're going to grab the item ID from that weapon. So there you go. That's just it. Very simple. Item ID. And then do the same thing for your left-handed weapon. So copy this, paste this, right becomes left, and right becomes left again, and down here the same thing. So now that should work. We're going to jump back in and test that just to be sure though, making sure I'm going to try to not miss any of these because it's really easy to forget one right where a left should be, and then you got some weird problems. Going to save that now. That looks good. Yes, jump back in game here. I'm going to save this. You can see I have a spear. I'm going to set it up so I have a spear. And I didn't fix that pivot point on that spear either. There we go. I got to fix that later on the left hand when I transferred in this new model. We'll save that like it is right now. And then I will jump back in. So we have a sword in the left hand, a spear in the right hand. Save game. Jump back in. Gonna close this out. So it should be a sword in the left hand, I believe it was. Yeah, a spear in the right. There we go. Cool. Looks good. Excellent. So now we have a way to save our weapons as well. All right, straightforward. Let's keep going. Next, we're going to do toggling between male and female body types. So this will work live, meaning if it changes on the fly, it should remember all your equipment and everything should still work as intended. So let's make a header for body type and a bool for is male in the current character save data. I will defaultly set that to true because defaultly the male model is going to be the one that will load when you start the game. Now, under load game data from current character data, we want to say player network manager.isMale.value is equal to current character data.isMale. And when we save it, we want to assign that. It's just the opposite, obviously. Current character data.isMale is equal to the player network manager.isMale.value. All right, cool. What's next? I'm actually going to bring this up to the top right under character name. I feel like it just belongs there. So we'll put it right below character name like that. Okay, save that again. I'm going to jump over to our player network manager. We're going to make a public void on is male changed. Now, you could have called this anything else, on body type changed or whatever, but I'm going to call it on is male changed because that is the name of the bool we have. Now, you could say if is male else and then do your logic here. I don't like doing that. I'm just going to hand it over to the player body manager. And we're going to create that logic over there. I just like having it set up that way, just person preference. We'll say player body manager. And I'm just going to say toggle body type. And we're going to pass is male.value. Again, this does not exist yet. Don't worry about that. We're going to make it right now. So jump over to player body manager. Just going to minimize this stuff so it's easier to read. Public void toggle body type. Make it require a bool for is male. And now here's where we do this stuff. So if we are a male, what do we want to do? Well, we want to disable the master female game object and enable the master male game object. So I'm just going to say male, we call it body objects, actually master body because we already have the body. Now, you know what, just male object is super simple and very clear. Dot set active true. And this doesn't exist yet. And then we're going to do the female object, set active false. And the reverse of this is also true. So if it's not male, then we're disabling the male object and we're enabling the female object. Okay, let's go ahead and make those variables real quick and then set them up in the prefab as well. So I'm just going to make a serializable field, a public game object. I can copy this variable. I'm just going to call it male object. So this should be the parent object that contains all of the male components of your model. So I will make a comment here, the master male game object parent. And then you can do the same thing down here for the female object, copy and paste, change to female. Cool, it looks good. And there we go, no more errors here. Go back to the player manager. Minimize this so it's easier to read. And we want to go back up on our on network spawn. And we want to call that on value change whenever that variable changes on the network. So I'm going to make a comment here for body type. I'm going to say player network manager dot is, whoops, not on is male changed. My bad. Is male dot on value changed plus equals player network manager on is male changed. Why is that giving us an error? Let's jump back real quick and check on it. Yes, we didn't make it require the old status and new status. So copy old status, new status from any of these functions, paste it, boom, there we go. And that should work. There we go. Cool. Copy and paste this below on network despawn and unsubscribe. Excellent. Now, like everything else, this only works when it has changed. So it has never changed. You'll never get an update. So under load other player characters when joining server, sync body type. I'm going to put this as a comment. We're going to say player network manager on is male changed, pass false, and then pass the is male status by saying player network manager dot is male dot value. Cool. All right, save that. And let's jump over into the project and go to the equipment model, because as you remember, we only did the load male model. Now, I'm not going to do all this on video for you because it's identical. Just replace the word male with female. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this, and I'll do like a couple for you real fast so you see exactly what I mean, and then I'll snap back to the video when it's done. So right here where it says male head full helmets, make it female, make this female, and that's it. Do the same thing for all of these and you're good to go. So here we go, up, snap back, they're all done. Make sure you take your time and don't miss one, otherwise you won't have some models loading in properly. Save that. Jump back to the prefab here now, and let's go and drag in our variables for the male master game object and the female. For me, it's going to be male parts. If you're using the same model, that's what it'll be for you too. For female, it's female underscore parts. Now I can save that, looking good. Go back over to the prefab again, enable your female object by default, so both are enabled at the same time. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to make sure that all of these arrays populate without any problems. So let's just keep them enabled, and then we'll disable them after we start the game and load the character save data. So where will we disable them? Well, if we go to load player data, you can see here we're going to call player body manager dot toggle body type, and we're going to pass current character data dot is male. Now, why are we calling this again? Well, as I said before, the on is changed value up here only calls if it's changed. So if the default is male and you've selected male, it's not going to change, and the female body is still going to be enabled, or we just had it enabled to grab all of those arrays. So just call this immediately, and then it will disable, just to be safe. Okay, so I'm going to make a comment here so that's very clear too as to why this is here. The toggle in case the value is the same as default, because on value change only works when you change it. So if you start with a male and don't change it, it's never going to toggle that function. Now, lastly, go to all of our load blank equipment, load head, body, leg, and gloves, and change the default true to whatever the is male value status is in the player network manager. Because if you recall, I said for now, we're just going to make this always male because we've only got the male model set up. Now you want to go and just, where it says load model, instead of true, you want to say player.playerNetworkManager.isMale.value. And that should work as intended. Just going to paste this here and save it. Now, also, you want to remember too, to initialize your slots. So I'm actually going to make a function for this too, just so it's out of the way, because I think it kind of looks a little bit messy. We're going to make a private void initialize armor models. And if you don't have all of your armor models initialized, again, we do that by referencing the parent object. We get every child of that parent object, we make it into a list, and then we convert that list to the array. So we've done this with a bunch of other ones, as you can see here, and I don't think we set up the female ones, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I have one set up. It's not even fully set up. I forgot to actually assign the array from the list. So I'm going to do that off video because it's exactly the same, just to save us some time. And I'm going to copy and paste all of this into our new initialize slots function. So I'm just going to quickly grab everything here, and I'm going to paste it inside this function. All right, cool. So that's all done here now, as you can see. Now I am going to go to on ismail changed, go to toggle body type from there, and right after we toggle the body type, we want to just go back and say player.player equipment manager dot, and then we want to say equip armor. Now you could just get rid of the search for male or female, so it always equips both, but then you're searching 2 lists. It's just a little bit more for the game to calculate, so just go ahead and refresh it after you equip it, and that should be fine. Let's save that, go back to game now. If I go over to my player network manager and I toggle the ismail, boom, you can see there we go, it switches to the female model. And again, we toggle back, boom, there's the male model and there's the female model. Just to show you for sure, I will go to my inventory and remove the helmet and get scarred by the Sinti model's eyeballs. Let's go over to the player equipment manager. There it is. Cool, guys. So now we have the ability to switch all of our gear out. We have the ability to talk between the male and female model. We have our armor saved to our save state, along with our weapons and our current weapon index. So it memorizes the weapons we had held in our hands. So very shortly, we're going to begin our inventory system. So we're going to start by using our interaction system to basically create a way to pick up items. And from there, those items are going to populate our inventory, and then we'll make it so we can equip things from the inventory. So now I have a question for you, and this is a preference for all of you watching this series, a very important question, so your input will be greatly appreciated because it will dictate the direction we go. I can do a very light version of the UI first, and then we can come back and add all of the nice features like the equipment stat display and all that stuff later. I say this to say the choice is we can just get the equipment working first, or I can also do a deep dive on my workflow for UI as I'm creating it. It's entirely up to you. Just note that if you want me to deep dive my UI, it's going to slow down the actual progression of the UI a little bit. So we can also just get a rough copy out first and come back and circle back to some design philosophy later. Entirely up to you. But as always, guys, thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and an immense thank you to my patrons. Genuinely, it is because of all of you this series is here, and I get to keep doing this, so thank you. You have my sincerest gratitude. All right, guys, I will see you all in the next one.